Brain's on fire. Brain's on fire. We've got about, let's see, you're probably listening to this early to mid-morning on Tuesday, August 2nd. So we've got, 10 hours until the MLB trade deadline?
Roughly, I would say roughly about that. And that means that we could see 48 trades. It really got going on Monday. Not even in the morning. It was more of afternoon hit. All of a sudden, all of the dominoes started to fall. And I still think there's a few big dominoes that need to fall for kind of the subsequent reaction of a few other moves. The biggest one being Juan Soto, which is holding some other trades that could happen as well. But we got a lot of action on this Monday, and we got a lot of stuff to go over.
Tons of action. This is the Just Baseball show for Tuesday, August 2nd. Jack McMullen, Aram Layton again. Peter's moving into his apartment, but you two, Aram and Peter, will be back to recap the trade deadline for you guys on Wednesday morning. Yeah, record Tuesday evening. I'm telling you, my brain's on fire right now because at 12:30 yesterday, we got going. It was Eddie Adrianza, the clubhouse MVP. He went from Washington to Atlanta in exchange for Trey Harris, who was just on the inside of the top 30 prospects for the Atlanta Braves. But then shit really started to get going here. We're going to go chronologically. We're obviously going to spend more time on the bigger things, but I mean, this felt like a deadline day before deadline day. Passan, Kirkjian, Nicole Briscoe on Baseball Tonight said that this has the possibility of being one of the craziest deadlines in recent memory. And from what Monday just gave us, I think Tuesday could be absolutely nuts too.
I know. Well, here's the thing. We're gonna talk about all of the things that did happen, right? So before we get into that, let's talk about the pieces that still haven't moved yet, right? Like what we have to look forward to still
at this moment, because we're recording at 8:49 p.m. We tried to wait a really long time, but remember the Luis Castillo deal came in at like 11 p.m. There's a chance that something comes out like late last night, and you're listening to this, and it simply was too late for us. So as of 8:49 p.m., we're talking about everything that has happened and that could happen.
And that includes Juan Soto. That includes Wilson Contreras. That includes Pablo Lopez, Syndergaard. You know, now Lopez is being tied to the Dodgers. Sounds like the Cardinals don't want to part with both Carlson and their top prospects, which is crazy. That was the expectation all along. What did you think was going to happen? So we'll see how that kind of unfolds. And the thing is both of those teams, Cardinals, Dodgers, Padres, the three of them are all buyers, right? And big time buyers, because they're going to make a splash one way or another. The other two teams that missed out on Soto are going to use whatever prospects that they were able to kind of save, quote unquote, and go get somebody. So it depends. But like, let's say the Dodgers don't get Soto. I think they pivot to Pablo Lopez or somebody like that. And Garrett Cooper maybe packaged with them. You could say the same thing about the Cardinals as well, maybe with a different move. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of that goes. But I'm very excited to see where Contreras goes and maybe even Sean Murphy as well.
Remind me to circle back to the Guardians and the Cardinals at the tail end because they've been quiet so far. And I want to get back to them at the tail end of this. And obviously we're going to be monitoring during this, but we've got a great trade deadline tracker up. It's at the top of the website at justbaseball.com. Ryan Finkelstein and the gang, Ethan Badowski and Elijah Evans, our social media gurus, have been plugging away at the trade deadline tracker, and they pretty much update it chronologically. Whenever something goes down, you can find it in the tracker. So I literally went about midway, through the tracker, and I'll scroll up. So at 12:30, clubhouse MVP Eddie Adrianza goes. And then the Yankees got Scott Effross from the Cubs for Hayden Wesneski. That was a big time deal for both of them. And Effross is a pop-up reliever. He is a side armor, borderline submariner that's got a great sinker slider combination. What is slept on about Scott Effross is he's got 5 years of control after this. He's a 28-year-old rookie. And what a lot of people were saying, I saw Passan put it out too, the market has changed. After Bard got that extension, the market might have changed from the rental reliever to the controllable reliever for a little bit steeper of a price. And when you see Hayden Wesneski went back to the Cubs, you said, damn, steep price. But then you realize that the Yankees just got a reliever with 5 more years of control.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, I think the plan for the Yankees is, Wesneski's probably a a back end of the rotation starter or a reliever. That's what you're looking at. And for the Yankees, the goal is probably to never have, and with all due respect to Wesneski, never have him in their rotation, because
if everything worked out well, wouldn't be him. Yeah,
it wouldn't be him, because they've got a lot of irons in the fire there. And that's one of the guys they're okay with parting with. To get a reliever who's under control for 5 years, I mean, that's big time. And I think it's pretty proven. I know relievers are volatile, but what we're seeing from Effross plays, like that plays, I think he's going to be good for a long time. And I think he's going to be a solid reliever. I think it's more of, can you trust him in high leverage back end, or is he more of a middle reliever? Regardless, you part with a prospect that probably had his work cut out for him to fit in. But for the Cubs side of it, I love it, right? This is a guy who has a good chance to be a back end of the rotation starter. And we talked about the Cubs draft. They went heavy on arms. We know they needed arms, and they go and get another one here that is really solid, pretty close to big league ready, fits their timeline, plus slider, good fastball. I still think will be a starter, and just adds another arm into their system, which they really needed.
100%. Effross, 2.66 ERA across 44 innings, over 10 punch outs per 9. He is elite when it comes to evading barrels, and he is elite when it comes to inducing chases on pitches out of the zone. That is what you sign up for. You sign up for deception with Scott Effross. The Yankees got that. And Wesneski, the pitch profile, it's sinker slider for the most part, right?
Yeah, it's sinker slider, but he throws strikes.
I'm in on that. We keep on moving. Joe Musgrove, 5 years, $100 million to stay with his hometown team, the San Diego Padres. They did it, man. I was really worried that they weren't going to pony up, and they were going to pony up elsewhere. Musgrove was going to be the best pitcher on the market, and the Padres got him for what I think is a discount for him. 5 years, 100. You got to remember that Robbie Ray and Kevin Gausman got like 5 for 115, 120. So Musgrove taking 20 AAV, granted that's still a lot, but less than what Ray and Gausman commanded last year, is a really impressive swindle by AJ Preller.
This seems like a good old-fashioned hometown discount. It really is. I mean, we know that Musgrove loves pitching there. We know that the Padres want to make other moves. So I wonder, hey, Joe, you get to stay home. You still get $100 million. We're going to give you a full no trade clause as well, which those are not given out often at all. And Musgrove is phenomenal, but usually you got to be Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander to get that kind of no trade clause, in there. And he's not quite that, even though he's really damn good. So I think that's a side of it. Then he has a limited no trade clause in 2027 as well. And then also, what did this mean? Player may purchase premium suite and 4 best premium season tickets to home games. What does it mean, purchase? Was he not able to? Does that mean it comes with it? Why would they phrase it player may purchase? He gets a suite on the road, though, too. So it seems like they gave him a sweet little unique deal. Threw in all the stops for whatever that means, that he can purchase it. I still don't get what that means. But the suite, it says suite on the road, so he gets a suite on the road. But the no trade clause is the big thing. He gets $100 million. I think it's a discount, but I think the Padres said, "Hey, we want you to stay home. We'll give you the no trade clause, and we're going to give you a better team. Not that they're bad now, but they're clearly not done." And I think that was some of the incentive here. We don't see as much of the pay cuts in baseball for help, like we do with James Harden doing that with the Sixers, or, Dwayne Wade doing it with the Heat back in the day. But I think in the Padres situation, you could probably see that as maybe a justifiable reason. And again, Musgrove loves San Diego.
Yeah, and tampering claims won't be affecting this like they did with Philadelphia and James Harden. But they're putting a better team around him. The ensuing move about 20 minutes later was San Diego going to grab Josh Hader, who is the best closer in recent memory, for Taylor Rogers, who is the Padres closer, Esteury Ruiz, who is a speed demon that had an 1,000 OPS at the minor league level, Dinelson Lamet, who not too long ago finished 4th in NL Cy Young voting in 2020, but he is a total lottery ticket. Is he ever going to get healthy again? And then lefty Robert Gasser, who I just saw throw 2 weeks ago, and I love Robert Gasser. So I thought that this was a very solid return for Hader, for Milwaukee, and San Diego, in turn, gets, when he's on, the best closer in the game.
Well, when he's on is the big key, because he's always been on over the last handful of years, right? And
until now.
And let's talk about the last 20 games for him, where over the last 20 ball games, a 7.45 ERA.
Yeah.
We're not used to that. I mean, the strikeout numbers are there. He's still striking out 17 batters per nine. But this is not the Josh Hader. We've never really seen a stretch like this from Josh Hader. Maybe Brewers fans could pull out a early stretch early in his career, but I can't think of one where he has looked like this. What I will say is he did come out over the last couple outings and has looked much better. Struck out the side in his last save against the Red Sox. 28 years old. I'm willing to bet on Josh Hader being just fine. But this was an interesting move for the Brewers because Sarah Langs had a really awesome tweet, it was really interesting. And it was roughly, I might butcher it a tad, but the larger point of it was that the last time an all-star was traded by a team that was in first place at the time of the deal, it was John Lester for Yoenis Cespedes, right? So you look back at that, and that's big leaguer for big leaguer, impact for impact, just the teams needed to swap needs there. This is not quite that. So that's what makes it a bit of a head scratcher, but you can also justify that, they're confident in Devin Williams, who has been dynamite, one of the best relievers in baseball this year, has 6 saves already. We think, he can really, I think he can really lock down that 9th inning. Rogers was incredible to start the season. He has been a guy that's faded, but the underlying numbers still look really good. I think that you could still count on him to be a very quality setup guy, and he can close out ball games, when Williams is unavailable. And then Ruiz could probably plug into their outfield right now. And they need that. They need that. So you could justify if Ruiz hits, he's a big X factor in the short term of this deal, right? If Ruiz kind of picks up where he left off in the minors and starts hitting, then this trade starts to make a lot more sense. But if Ruiz looks like he's more of a next year kind of guy to make the big league impact, then it's hard to say that the big league team got better from this deal, but it is possible.
Listen, the Padres have been good all year long, and Padres fans have been vocal about Esteury Ruiz possibly being a better option than Trent Grisham out in center. Yeah. So if Padres fans are clamoring for that, the Brewers have to at least give him a shot in a bad outfield. Like, he's got a space for him in that offense. That's how that Brewers offense works. One more thing on Hader that I will say, you would think, oh, he's been crappy. What's the fastball velo like? Fastball velo is the same, if not better, 97 to 98 over his last couple of outings. So he is just fine. Taylor Rogers, again, another quote unquote buy low guy. And I guess the Padres are technically buying low on Josh Hader. I don't really think so. This is still a great haul. Let's hit on Gasser for a moment. I know we're going to do that on the call-up as well. Obviously, go listen to the call-up because a lot of these trade returns, we're going to be talking about these prospects on contending teams that are going back as the return to deals. We just talked about Noelvi Marte and Edwin Arroyo, who were part of the Luis Castillo trade. Who else do we talk about?
I mean, we hit on almost every prospect. Yeah. We even hit on the trio of arms that went over to the Royals, Beck Way. Even like the Andrew Moores of the world. I mean, we're hitting on on the call up. We're going to get deeper into the nitty gritty of, each of the prospect returns, especially for, those bigger trades, but even the smaller trades, we're going to hit on all of them. But I do want to talk about Gasser because that was a guy that I texted you about when I was doing the Padres system last year. Yeah. And coming into this season, I think we were the only outlet really that had Gasser in the Padres top 10 coming into the year. I think quickly as the year went on, a lot of outlets started to update their top 10s and put Gasser in there, but we had him at number 7 coming into this season. And he's continued to look better and better as the year has gone on. At times can start to run into hard contact, but the slider is nasty. High 3/4 arm slot, has a chance to be a solid middle of the rotation starter. And that's the final piece in this deal. You could say Lamet is, I guess, but that is a really good piece to get. And I think a quality pitching prospect. One last thought on Ruiz. I really like, for those who are listening that may not know who he is, he leads professional baseball in stolen bases. He has 60. Yeah. And he has always been a stolen base threat. The problem was you can't steal first, right? Like Billy Hamilton, and he just wasn't getting on base at the same clip. He has cut the chase rate down by 10%. He has much improved his ability to just hit, period. So his batting average is higher, his on base percentage is higher. And as a result, sitting a guy with a 460 on base percentage, swipe 60 backs. So this is a guy that's going to add a lot of dynamic ability to this Brewers team. And I assume they're going to give him a shot at the big league level right away.
Yeah, man, I think they're going to give him a shot too, and I think that he can make the Brewers better. Having said that, I probably still wouldn't have traded Josh Hader if I was David Stearns, but that's not really how Milwaukee operates. They probably felt like they had that guy in Devin Williams, and they were willing to go get guys that they think can help them right away. I saw that Ruiz will be with AAA Nashville. And then Robert Gasser felt like a promotion within the Padres organization was inevitable. He was making his last, however many starts with Fort Wayne. After the trade, he was just assigned to Double-A Biloxi. So Robert Gasser is a Double-A arm. He's going to be one of the more electric arms in Double-A, which is chock full of electric arms. And like you're saying, high three quarters. Mid-90s fastball, great breaking stuff. This guy has the ability to be a strikeout pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. And don't they have Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff? Oh, they just signed Aaron Ashby to a 5-year extension. They're adding to the stable, and it works really well. So that's that on that deal. What was the next one? Anthony Mishevitz to Kansas City in exchange for cash considerations. Next one, Garrett Clevenger to the Rays for German Tapia. No, next one, Trey Mancini headed to Houston in a 3-player deal or in a 3-team deal. So going to Houston, Trey Mancini and Jaden Murray from Tampa.
Yep.
Going to Baltimore, Chase McDermott from Houston and Seth Johnson from Tampa. And going to Tampa, Jose Siri from Houston.
Yeah, your boy Jose Siri. Your boy Jose Siri.
My guy Jose Siri.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack in this one, right? What team you want to start with? You start with the easy one, the Astros?
Yeah, let's start with the Astros because they just got better.
Yeah, Astros get better, right? Trey Mancini has gotten better and better as the years gone on. I think I'm sad to see him leave Baltimore, but this is going to be cool for Trey Mancini, right? I mean, I know Baltimore is winning ball games right now, but they're not a World Series threat. Trey Mancini could get a ring this year, right? And that's pretty damn cool, especially with everything that he's been through. He's a bat that I think you can put first base, you could put at DH, you could put in the outfield. All depends on how you want to handle Yordan, but he does come with versatility. He's made 51 starts at DH, he's made 29 starts at first, and he's made 10 starts in right, 3 starts in left. I really like the addition because he's just another bat and already a potent lineup at a spot where they were not getting a ton of production. I assume he's going to play a lot of first base. I really am excited. And also he's going from an environment where it is really hard to go yard in left field in Baltimore. It's going to be a lot easier to go yard in left field with the Crawford boxes there. I think there's a lot to like about Trey Mancini's move and what he can, what he's going to be able to do offensively, especially being in a lineup where he is far from the guy you are worried about, where in the Orioles lineup, he's kind of the guy you're more worried about, as I know they've gotten better offensively as the year's gone on. But I think this is a perfect spot for him.
It's a perfect fit. I think he's going to be the first baseman of the Astros. I think that Yuli Gurriel is going to still hit a little bit, but I mean, most of those plate appearances are going to be Mancini's. Yuli Gurriel, after winning a batting title last year, hit .319. He's hitting .243 right now. You look at slugging.
He's sneaky old.
He's 38. He's sneaky 38 years old. He was a rookie as a 32-year-old in 2016. Yeah. But yeah, Yuli Gurriel slashing 243, 293, 392. That's not going to cut it for a World Series team. That will cut it for a team that wants to win the AL West, but this team wants to do a shit ton more than win the AL West. Trey Mancini can help them do that.
And how about the fact that, again, I wanted to pull up the expected home runs by park, which I know it's a little bit more nuanced than that because you're only playing half of your games at the park, but it does put things in perspective.
Crawford boxes,
22 home runs if he played all of his games in Houston.
Wow.
Trey Mancini. So, even cut that in half, right? The difference in half, because he has 10. If he has 16, that's a big difference. And it's not that clear cut, but you could definitely make the case that he'd have a handful more home runs if he wasn't playing in the graveyard that has become Baltimore's left field versus the Crawford boxer. So very excited to see what Mancini's going to do there. And then a quick thought on Jaden Murray. We have a piece on justbaseball.com. We talked to Jaden Murray last year, just actually at the end of the season in October, ahead of this one, about what really helped him make that big breakout last year, because he was dominant in the Rays organization last year. He has continued to be good this year. Really good piece on justbaseball.com about that, and a good interview with him, but a good pitching prospect to get in there. 25 years old, close to big league ready, a good depth arm, and to also get that guy in return, I think is pretty solid.
Yeah. So Baltimore, they just let their clubhouse leader go. Having said that, Trey Mancini's a first baseman. Ryan Mountcastle is a better first baseman. So Trey, I'm not going to say Trey didn't have a spot, but Trey's spot was being crept up on by Mountcastle, and the farm was creeping up on Mancini. It makes sense. You never want to see those types of moves happen. Having said that, like, again, it was a move that I think Mike Elias was okay making. Sucks for everybody in the clubhouse, but this is baseball is a business type of move. For Baltimore, they get two arms back. Seth Johnson, who was a top 5 prospect in the Rays organization, TJ guy, might not throw it all next year, actually. And then Chase McDermott, chirp, Ball State's finest. McDermott goes to Baltimore. They just added 2 pretty solid pitching prospects to a team that needs pitching.
So let's remove emotions for a second, right? Because it's hard to see Mancini anywhere else, but mutual option for next year. Mancini was not going to opt into that for what? Like, I don't even know what it was for, probably $7-8 million.
Yeah.
He's not opting into that because he'll get more than that on the open market because he has a ton of value as a hitter with some versatility on top of being just a good guy. And I always talk about that with other big leaguers who played long in their career that I've had the chance to talk to. They felt like what extended their career was just being a good guy, right? Like, I'm serious. Like that's something that Niner always says on Outside the Box. Like, he's like, when I stunk at the end, they kept me around because I wasn't an asshole. Like that and Mancini, he's still really good, but
he's certainly not an asshole.
No, he's certainly not an asshole. And that makes you you're willing to pay a little bit extra for those kind of guys. He would have got more than that.
Yeah.
They would have lost him in free agency, or they would have had to re-up, and they wouldn't have wanted to do that because it wouldn't have made sense for them for all the reasons you mentioned, in terms of their roster. They don't really need to pay a first baseman, and they've got a lot of guys coming up. So if you look at what they're getting here, Seth Johnson was on his way to being a top 100 prospect had he not gone down with an injury. We're talking sits in the mid 90s, up to 97 miles an hour with a ton of life on the fastball, wipeout slider, along with a curveball that he mixes in for a third pitch. I mean, this is a dude that could be a really solid middle of the rotation starter. Instantly becomes the Orioles' third best pitching prospect. So you're able to get your third best pitching prospect here for a guy that you really don't need in the long term, on top of Chase McDermott, whose numbers are a bit inflated. Again, we also did a full breakdown on this trade. We're doing a full breakdown on almost every single decent trade on justbaseball.com. But McDermott's got big time swing and miss stuff, mid 90s fastball, another wipeout slider, a curveball, and a changeup that he mixes in there.
Yeah.
That's a good arm and probably a top 6 or 7 arm in their system now too. They needed arms really bad. We know that's the case with Baltimore, and they got a pair kind of similar to the Cubs. Difficult, but the right move, I think, for them long term. And Johnson will probably be a rotation piece for them in a couple years.
Yeah, let's look at 2024, right? Because you've got Tyler Wells, Kyle Bradish, how about Grayson Rodriguez, who we think is the best pitching prospect in baseball, DL Hall. Now you add Seth Johnson and Chase McDermott to the mix, and there we go. Like, that is a good stable of starting pitching. That is very solid. Now, a team that has extended one of their cornerstones very long term, Atlanta, 10 years, $212 million for Austin Riley. This is coming off of the best month, literally, like, ever. Austin Riley had a 1,300 OPS in July. Saw this in the Braves release announcing the extension. He and Chipper Jones are the only 2 in Braves history to have a single month where they hit 400 with double-digit home runs. He hit 423, I want to say, in 25 games with 11 homers and 25 driven in. Austin Riley's one of the best hitters in baseball. We were just talking about it on yesterday's Just Baseball show. If Goldie slumps a little bit and Riley continues to obviously not do what he did in July, but continues what he's done all year, he's going to be a 300, 380, 550 to 600 slash line guy. He's going to have 40 pumps. He's going to have 120 driven in, and he might mess around and win National League MVP. And the Braves just got him long-term less than 5 months after they got Matt Olson long-term.
The Alex Anthopoulos special. 3 years of arbitration bypass. Leverage that. Bet on your young guys that are really performing. and you'll never regret it, right? I mean, right now, the worst pre-arb deal that they've done is looking like Ozzy Albies. And that's a guy that I think with the deal that he got, you're not losing sleep over that. And I still think he's a decent player, obviously. Some think he's better than that. That's a whole different discussion. But the reality is they go pre-arb with these guys, and they save a lot of money, and it helps you keep your core together. And that's why the Braves will keep their core together. The only guy they didn't do it with was Dansby Swanson, but Dansby didn't show enough to garner or merit that pre-arb deal. But we'll see if they want to keep him because they know that they've got the other core pieces locked up, and it'll be interesting to see how they approach that. This is a great deal value-wise. And again, I think a lot of people, I always see the instant reaction is, whoa, how did they get him for so cheap? 3 years of arbitration bypassed. Riley gets financial security, and he makes more money over the next 3 years. He doesn't have to sweat it and keep playing for his contract over the next 3 seasons. Great deal for the Braves. Great deal for Austin Riley. Congratulations to him. The Braves continue to solidify this core for the foreseeable future. And it looks like we're going to be looking similar to the Bobby Cox Braves that seem to just be at the top of the division every year. The Mets may have something to say about it, but their shelf life is shorter. The Braves are going to be that team, I think, that dominates the NL East for the next decade like they did in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. How about this from Paul Hembakaitis, who does great stuff stat-wise at ESPN. He's like kind of the main stat head for Get Up in the mornings, but Hembo tweeted this out. For 33 years of service time, the Braves will have paid Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna, and Ozzy Albies $515 million. And I busted out my iPhone calculator, figured out that was about $15.5 million AAV for Riley, Olson, Acuna, and Albies. And the oldest age that they're going to pay one of those guys, I do believe, is 35 for Austin Riley, and they've got a club option that year. They're not paying for dead years. They're paying for the prime of 4 borderline superstars.
Or the same as the Rangers are paying for just Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. And look, I'm not faulting them. I like that move. I like that the Rangers are spending. But let's be clear here. Alex Anthopoulos is the best executive in baseball.
And it's not close right now. Friedman is there, but like AA, like he is the king.
That stat right there, I think, is exactly what backs that up. You got to have the balls to lock your guys up pre-arb if you really believe in them. And just like you have to scout players and identify players, you have to identify the big leaguers who you're willing to lock up for 10 years. And so far, they've done pretty well in doing so and identifying the right guys. Alex Anthopoulos is a beast. Love what he's doing over there in Atlanta. And congratulations again to Austin Riley. It's pretty awesome.
Dude, that is fucking incredible. Next one. Astros got Christian Vazquez. That was a very weird interaction. Vazquez was talking to media and Red Sox PR pulled him away. The Red Sox, like, just watching the scenes unfold ahead of the game yesterday in Houston, this feels very similar. Honestly, it feels more intense than what Seattle was dealing with last year with Jerry DiPoto when they traded Kendall Graveman. It was, we're playing one game, our GM's playing another. Kind of feels like the Red Sox are playing one game and Chaim Bloom is playing another, and there's no cohesion there whatsoever.
What's interesting is I actually kind of like the trade in a way. I don't know what the Red Sox plan was, and it doesn't seem like they felt like they were going to re-sign.
Yeah. So in a vacuum, you like that trade. You like the prospects that they got back.
Yes.
But you can look at the Boston Red Sox, who are supposed to be competing every year, and you can say, okay, they shipped off Christian Vazquez. They got Reese McGuire back. They ship off, or they might be shipping off JD Martinez in the next 24 hours. They get Tommy Pham back. It's so weird what they're doing.
Yeah. So what they're doing basically is selling off some pieces that are about to be free agents to try to get whatever they can get prospect wise. And then almost just trying to fill in with something half decent, right? Or someone half decent, right? So instead of just rolling with Rob Refsnyder when he comes back from the IL, they're still trying to get cheap big league pieces to say, hey, we're giving it a shot. We're not fully mailing it in, but the reality is they're mailing it in. And I think that's what we have to call it at this point. They are kind of mailing it in.
Yeah.
And the even weirder part of the whole thing is that Vazquez now, goes across to the other clubhouse, which is just so bizarre. And JD Martinez this was something I saw it on Twitter, right? Where JD Martinez was mentioning in the press conference or pregame that it's weird because they were just talking to Vazquez about, what their whole plan was basically. And Vazquez was a big part of that meeting. And now he goes over to Houston with all of that information. Yeah. And that's just bizarre and feels weird. And the trades when you are playing a series with that team or against that team is always super weird. But I will say at the prospect return, I do like Emmanuel Valdez a lot. 21 pumps this year, already in AAA infielder, which is interesting that they wanted a upper minors infielder and seeing what the plan might be there. And then Wilyer Abreu is really interesting. I tweeted out a 440-foot shot he hit earlier this year. He's got above average speed. He's 23 for 24 on stolen bases. Good power, interesting bat from the left side. So they get two intriguing prospects that I do like. But they do trade their starting catcher who had a 111 WRC plus, was playing great defense. And, I thought they would probably extend him. They don't really have any catchers coming up through the pipeline. Ultimately, they look like they want to deal him. I don't know if they're going to try and get him in free agency back, but, there he goes.
Sounds like that relationship's kind of soured in the last 24 hours because he said something about the front office having disconnect from the clubhouse, and less than 24 hours later, he was out the door. So I don't know like how much of that is real. It might just be coincidental and things like that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens there. The Astros got a lot better, adding Christian Vazquez over Martin Maldonado. You look at offensive upgrades. They just upgraded offensively at first base and catcher. Boom. Problem solved.
Yep.
The Red Sox moved Jake Diekman. The White Sox needed a lefty reliever. They got a lefty reliever in Jake Diekman. Reese McGuire is the return. So Reese McGuire will do a lot of catching for the Red Sox. That does not spell success. For the White Sox, I really like the move. They needed a left-handed bullpen arm. They got the left-handed bullpen arm. Give me Jock Peterson today, please God, Rick Hahn.
And that's a guy I'm really excited to see where he goes. That's a low-cost acquisition. The White Sox should absolutely be doing that, but they do go get a reliever. They've been extremely quiet, but Diekman does help. Lower key trade. But again, I think the thing that kind of epitomizes the move for the Red Sox, and it's the fact that they're trading him to a rival, right? The Astros are an AL rival at the end of the day. And if they really felt like they were competing, I don't know if you're trading him to the Astros. So, that was the team that they played in the ALCS last year. It's just crazy how quickly things can change. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. Things have changed very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, the Red Sox are providing the starting catcher for the Houston Astros just shortly after they lost to them in the ALCS. Pretty wild.
Do we know the return for Tommy Pham yet?
No. I've never seen an announced trade of he's been traded, but we don't know to where. And I don't think we know what the Tommy Pham return is as of 9:20 p.m. on Monday.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Pham in a Red Sox uniform. Okay, cool. Fantasy football jokes. They will live on. And they might actually be in a brighter light now that he's out of Cincinnati and in Boston. One more very, very minor one. The Diamondbacks traded Luke Weaver to Kansas City for Emmanuel Rivera. I think Emmanuel Rivera can be not a fine big leaguer, but I think he can be a bench bat. I think he immediately turns into a bench bat for the Diamondbacks, and cool. That's great. So if you're a Diamondbacks fan, congratulations. You might see some Emmanuel Rivera doubles and homers before the year's up. So that's that.
I'm here for the Royals getting any pitcher ever too. So
yeah, Luke Weaver. Great. That's awesome. I do want to circle back to the Cardinals and Guardians, like I mentioned on the top of the episode. How do they go about this? And again, I ask you, I've asked Peter on Friday. I asked you yesterday. I ask you again today. What team is Juan Soto on tomorrow morning?
Padres.
Yeah.
The Cardinals are reluctant to deal Dylan Carlson. Was that the report from Morosi? Right. You're going to let Dylan Carlson. I like Carlson. He's 23 and he's already shown to be
Soto, dude.
To hit at the big league level, but it's on Soto. Carlson plus the top prospects. I think they were saying it's like one or the other. You're either getting the Jordan Walkers and the Mason Wins, or you're getting Dylan Carlson. That's not how you get Juan Soto. It's got to be both. And that seems to be what the issue is right now. I think the Padres are going to be just fine with making the deal. And what was really interesting to me is the way they were able to piece together that Josh Hader return without parting with one of those blue chippers that would be wanted in a trade for Juan Soto, because none of those prospects that were dealt in that trade for Hader were names that I think were going to be discussed for Juan Soto.
Maybe would have.
That would have been the fifth piece.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of an interesting, there's an interesting aspect to that whole thing as well. So I think the Padres are going to make the move. I think they're going to do it. And that's why AJ Preller is just always going to be Mr. Aggressive.
He's a nut job, man. How do we think it looks? Do we think it's Gore, Abrams, Hassel, Wood?
I think they might keep Gore. I was even thinking like it could be something along the lines of Abrams, Hassel,
Wood,
Merrill, and
Morahone.
then Morahone, and then maybe one other piece.
Oh my God. It's
like,
still nuts.
That's a freaking haul. I mean, we're talking about a higher floor prospect like Robert Hassel. We're talking about CJ Abrams, who is high floor, high ceiling.
You said James 3,000 hits.
Yes. He's on his way. Yeah. James Wood is, I would say, upside wise, his upside is best player in baseball. Right? It's Judge, but he also has the probability or a chance to flame out in high A. But that's the third piece in the deal, is a guy with that kind of upside. And then Merrill, high floor, first round pick, great bat to ball, has already shown early results. And then, whoever else you want to throw in there. That is a return that I think is really hard to say no to. We could even see maybe Jake Cronenworth thrown in there. I think we could see anything. But I think the Padres are the team that is crazy enough to do it, because it seems like every team is negotiating. And then it's one of those where right when you're about to like do it, it's like, oh, actually, do I want to give all of that up?
Yeah.
And it's just one of those situations. I don't think Preller is going to have that moment.
Yeah.
I think he's just say, all right, send it in.
He doesn't have that bone in his body. This from John Morosi that you were referencing. In Juan Soto trade talks, Cardinals have been willing to include Dylan Carlson, haven't been willing to include Dylan Carlson and their top prospects in the same offer, at least thus far. Negotiations are reaching a critical point. That was at 8:04 p.m. on Monday. If the Cardinals, let's say, if the blank does not get Juan Soto, what do they do? If the Cardinals do not get Juan Soto, what do they do?
That's a great question. It's funny because you think to pivot to another outfielder, but do they really need another outfielder?
I think so.
They just wanted a Hall of Famer. They just wanted a guy that was on his way to the Hall of Fame. I think they'll get a pitcher.
I too want a Hall of Famer.
Yes, we all do. Yeah. I would say go for a starter. I really think that there's a Pablo Lopez kind of counteract that comes from whoever doesn't get Juan Soto. The Padres are kind of excluded from this, but specifically the Cardinals, and we know the Dodgers have already been engaged with the Marlins on Pablo Lopez. That's probably the best pitcher left on the market, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a Carlos Rodon. I think we're going to see either of those teams kind of pivot to a starter and use their prospects to go get a starter. We know the Dodgers and Cardinals both want and need one.
Rodon in St. Louis would be incredible.
Imagine Rodon and Jock packaged in the same deal or something like that.
Dude, sign me up. And Rodon, I don't think they need to give up Carlson, surely.
No.
Walker,
no.
Wynn. I don't even think you need to give up Alec Burleson. I think for Rodon, does Baez and McGreevy get you Rodon? You might even just need those two, Baez and McGreevy for Rodon. Do you say no if you're San Francisco?
I think someone could beat that. That's the only thing. I don't think it's that low.
But you've got more. Like, you have a lot more that you can throw at them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe Bader. Like that's, he seems like the odd man out kind of at this point. But if you have to part with Burleson, you part with Burleson. That's fine. I love Alec Burleson, obviously, guest on the call up, but that's a guy that's close to big league ready. I think the Giants would really want him.
He could be great as a Giant. Yeah.
He'd be fantastic. He splashed McCovey Cove plenty. That's a deal I think we could definitely see them make. But I think if you throw in like a Lars Nootbaar into that package that you put together, maybe that'll put him over the top. But the thing is, the Cardinals could do it without parting with any of their blue chippers, and that's the larger point.
Yeah, that's a larger point. I think the Cardinals go get a starting pitcher, maybe two. Maybe you can, get rid of a 15 to 20 guy and maybe a 20 to 25 guy for Jose Quintana in division. Yeah. I think that works perfectly.
Yeah.
If the Guardians do not get Juan Soto, and we're assuming that they're not, what do they do? I heard Kirkjian saying that they're closer to selling than buying at this point. I know teams have been calling about Zach Plesac. I don't really believe that. I think that ESPN wants to cater to the masses a little bit. And obviously, like, we want to cater to the masses too, but they're sitting here talking about Wilson Contreras to Cleveland right now. Let's be honest. Cleveland and Wilson Contreras would never work. They're like, Cleveland doesn't buy rentals. Wilson Contreras wants to go to a major market. I promise you.
And he's going to command a haul. He's still going to command a haul. So would you rather give up like the
same haul for Sean Murphy?
Well, I was going to say, would you rather give up a 6 out of 10 package for a rental Wilson Contreras or an 8 out of 10 package for Sean Murphy and multiple years of him? It's a no-brainer at that point. And I like Contreras. He's doing a lot of great things, but you're going to have to pay him if you want to keep him, and that's not the Guardians' MO. I would be shocked if they sell, because here's the thing. The Twins are a game or a half game ahead of them as we're recording this, and the Twins are beat up. They are hurt. Pitching-wise, they are beat up, and they don't have that much to part with prospect-wise to make a deal.
I'm not sure how they go about this deadline, to be totally honest.
It's going to have to be packaging like a Kirilloff or Warnick or one of those guys. I think Miranda's too big of a part of what they're doing right now. To trade him would be like one step forward, a half a step back.
Yeah.
The Twins are my point here is that they are vulnerable, and the Guardians are not. They're still playing the same ball that they've been playing all year. Go get a Sean Murphy. We talked about it on the last episode. They can make the deal. We talked about it on the call-up, actually. They can make a deal pretty easily and not deplete the system. Go do that. You also satisfy the catching situation, the catching position for the foreseeable future. I don't think the Guardians are sellers by any means here, because this is an opportunity for them to make the playoffs with a very cheap team. And that's a lot of revenue coming into a team that just also was able to raise a lot more capital by selling an ownership stake, and kind of getting an influx of money in there. I think that's going to play a part in this too. They'll be okay with bringing on a couple more quote unquote expensive guys. It
totally slipped my mind that we didn't talk about Frankie Montas. Frankie Montas and Lou Trevino go to New York. So, yeah, I mean, New York got the best pitcher available after Luis Castillo was off the board. Congratulations to them.
Would you say you'd rather have Montas than Lopez?
Lopez has one more year of control. Lopez has 2.5. Montas has 1.5 at this moment.
Yeah. The price for Montas is cheaper. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, I think I would rather go at Montas for that cost. Fewer year. Yeah.
For the cost of acquisition, right? Because the surprise was that it's a good return in terms of, they are getting good players, good prospects here. Yeah. But I think we all expected it to be more. And I think it's a testament to the fact that there's a lot of teams concerned about the health of Montas' shoulder. I did a dive into Velo last start. Velo is down a tick. His numbers away from the Coliseum are not great, and we know that is one of the more pitcher-friendly environments in baseball. Like, there's a couple little flags there that maybe were enough to, have teams a bit hesitant to part with an elite prospect. I mean, we're talking about Noelvi Marte, consensus top 25 prospect, and then basically a top 100 guy in Edwin Arroyo going in that Luis Castillo deal versus Ken Waldichuk, who's a top 100 guy.
Yeah.
I think we had him preseason top 100, and he's only climbed since then. And Luis Medina is borderline top 100 with what he is doing this year, but I've always been lower on him. But depending on who you ask, I think right on the fringe of being a top 100 guy. Again, is enjoying probably the best season that he's had at basically above any lower level. And then a couple decent pieces. And then, Bowman's been all right and has some upside as well. And then Sears is a top 30 prospect. So it's not a, meager return, but I think it's less than what we expected, especially after the Castillo trade was made. But still, I think when you're getting somebody like Montas, you're happy to give that up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Trevino, like, you just take a chance on the fact that he might put together a couple of solid outings for you this year. He's a hard-throwing righty from an unorthodox arm slot. You mentioned his shoulder. Shoulders are scarier than elbows to me at this point. Like, that's kind of flipped.
Oh,
right?
No. It's a no-brainer. Shoulders are way worse.
Way worse. And I mean, we were talking about Bieber's shoulder ad nauseum at the beginning of the year, and here we are talking about Frankie Montas's shoulder. But listen, if Frankie's right, and I think Frankie's right now, the Yankees just added a 2 and a great 2. So especially with Sevy going on the 60-day, you've got Garrett Cole, you've got Nestor, you've got Frankie Montas, and whoever you want the 4 to be. Montgomery, Tyone.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty damn good.
It's pretty damn good. I'll take that front 3 any day.
Trevino's like their 5th inning guy. He's like a guy that comes in when the start's going shitty.
Yeah,
and he's got great stuff. It's just been a bit of a shaky year for him, but maybe a new environment will be refreshing. Diving into the return real quick, Waldichuk though, big swing and miss stuff as a lefty. Yeah, reminds me of Trevor Rogers. He really does, and like the good
Trevor Rogers, not a bad
good Trevor Rogers. Reminds me of a good Trevor Rogers. Fastball, changeup is disgusting from the release point, the arm speed. You can't separate the two. Mixes in a pretty good breaking ball. This guy's going to be a high strikeout, middle of the rotation starter. Medina has the floor of a lights out back end reliever, but I still think that there's some hope that this guy can be a starter. And I think I really relegated him to the bullpen prior to this year, and he's kind of allowed me to take some pause here with what he's done this season. So, I mean, this is a big time talented arm who a 3.80 ERA in 72 innings. He's punched out 81, 40 walks is a bit concerning, but it's probably the best stretch he's had. And this is in Double-A. So this is encouraging. And then again, the other 2 pieces are no slouches either. Sears is pretty solid. Bowman's pretty solid. I think the A system gets better, but they have not turned all of their all-star caliber players into anything I think that you can really write home about. But again, these are guys that should be big league ready pretty soon, especially Waldichuk. I think he could almost slot into the rotation now.
I think it's September 10. Waldichuk is getting starts for the Oakland A's. Last thing for me, at Mike Deportes, Mike Rodriguez said at 4:48 p.m. on Monday afternoon, the Dodgers are close to acquiring Juan Soto from the hashtag Nationals. They are talking intensely. Padres and Cardinals still on the talk. So I would make sure you see the blue check mark before you believe anything. Cool?
Yep. Also, as we're recording this, Tarek Skubal pulled after 77 pitches. No injury apparent.
Yeah.
No damage surrendered either.
Should we just sit here for 5 minutes and see if a tweet comes out?
Apparently his velocity was down a bit in the 5th inning. I don't know. So kind of interesting.
Oh God, I have no idea.
That would be a dumb trade objectively, unless they bring in the double Luis Castillo haul.
Francisco Alvarez. Tarek Skubal to the Mets for Francisco Alvarez, Pete Alonso, and Max Scherzer.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't see a young, pretty established starting pitcher with 5 years of control, 4.5 years of control being dealt. So that's going to be interesting. We got a lot more storylines to go through as we move forward here. Again, justbaseball.com. We have the tracker so you don't miss a trade. What you're going crazy.
The St. Louis Cardinals finalizing a deal to acquire left-hander Jose Quintana from the Pittsburgh
Pirates. No way.
There we go.
So what do we think about that as we finish up here?
No return is going to be known before we say adios. No. I love it. I just mentioned it 10 minutes ago. Right. I thought that was a great minor move for them to make. It fills a day out of the 5 in the rotation. Quintana's been good. It's been a turn back the clock year for Jose Quintana. I think the Cardinals are really going to benefit from that.
Let's call a spade here. What Matthew Liberatore is doing right now, what he's capable of right now, is not up to the level of what Jose Quintana will provide you right now.
Correct.
So the Cardinals got better. Liberatore can develop and triple and continue to work through things. This is a guy, like you said, that gives you a quality start or a good shot at a quality start every 5th day. Cardinals don't have enough of those guys. Great trade, low cost. I'm very interested to see what the return is from my prospect nerd standpoint, but I don't think it's going to be anything that, is really going to, make waves on Twitter or anything like that. But it's a good addition, and I don't really think it has any bearing on the Juan Soto situation.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we're going to be just fine. All right, Aram and Peter will be back to talk about the rest of the trade deadline, which is obviously going to be absolutely insane. See you guys.